The Defense Forces of Ukraine struck one of Russia's largest oil refineries. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The oil refinery in the city of Kirishi, Leningrad region was on fire. According to open sources, the plant's capacity exceeds 18 million tons of oil processed per year. Local residents filmed the explosions and the fire. The regional governor confirmed the drone attack. In addition, the missile ship Buyan M in Karelia, the Harmonia radar complex in the Kursk region, and the command post of Russia's 8th Army in Donetsk region were also hit. And which other Russian targets have been attacked by Ukrainian drones at distances of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers from the border in recent times? Our correspondent Yulia Chekichina will tell you.
The Afipsky oil refinery, a gas distribution station near Rostov, and a chemical plant in Belorechynsk. And in the past few weeks alone, Ukraine's defense forces have struck a dozen such targets. Drones have even reached Bashkortostan and Astrakhan. And that's despite the distance of over 1,000 kilometers.
Numerous strikes on various oil refineries, including those that are quite remote, as well as those located very close by, like the Afipsky refinery, for example, in Krasnodar Krai, which is very close to the front line. This means that fuel can be delivered directly from there by vehicles to Russian army units that are directly involved on the front line.
And about the strike on the Elektrodetail plant in the Bryansk region, which produces parts for military equipment, the freelance advisor to the office of the president, Vladislav Lasyuk, spoke.
The Karachov Elektrodetail plant, hit by the defense forces, was manufacturing components for HIMARS, Iskanders, and other equipment. It was also involved in schemes for purchasing carbon fiber and other related goods. It was under sanctions in the US and Ukraine. Now it faces explosive sanctions as well.
In this footage, you can see one of the latest drone strikes. Our sources in the SBU told us that the Yedyny drone struck the oil refinery in Orsk, which is 1,400 kilometers from the state border with Ukraine. Valery Romanenko says. The Yedyny is equipped with about 50 kilograms of explosives.
Its range is over 1,000 kilometers. It is already being used by the BSC now. And by reducing the warhead, they added more fuel, reaching 1,200 kilometers. And at a shorter range, it can probably carry 50 to 70 kilograms of explosives.
But above all, strikes on Russian oil refineries affect the fuel market, and consequently, the military-industrial complex, and in particular on strategic aviation, says aviation expert Valery Romanenko.
A single Tu-95 flight, depending on the distance, where it took off from, where it flew to, where it launched the missile, and where it returned, can use up to 100 tons of fuel. That's just for fuel. The cost of a ton of fuel is well known. Right now it exceeds $1,000. But our main goal is to undermine the Russian military industry.
Strikes on Russian oil facilities by the defense forces are being called sanctions cotton. At the same time, Vladislav Lasyuk calculated how much damage Russia has already suffered.
They have indeed lost no less than 10%, and in fact closer to 15% of their refining capacity, which is really causing them a crisis that most Russians cannot help but notice. And that is exactly what we are aiming for. When most Russians notice the consequences of one type of sanction or another, it makes them start asking questions.
The targets at the oil refineries were attacked not only by aerial drones but also by maritime ones. They broke through to the ports of Novorossiysk, where Russia had relocated its Black Sea fleet from temporarily occupied Crimea.
In Novorossiysk, the warhead there weighed several hundred kilograms, and there the equipment was seriously damaged as well. And besides that, let's not forget that the entire time, the air defense system in Crimea, especially its sensory components, meaning the radar stations, remains under constant surveillance by our units, which are equipped with our trouble-making drones.
And furthermore, Ukraine is capable of responding to Moscow and cutting off the Russian capital's electricity supply. Specifically, this refers to strikes on energy infrastructure. This warning was issued to Moscow by the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Andriy Hanatov.
We will find both the opportunity and the weapons, and we will carry out these operations. They will definitely realize that this way they will not achieve any advantage.
The Ukrainian army can reach any military targets on Russian territory. We have already proven the power of Ukrainian weaponry. This was the response of Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha to the Russian attacks.
From today, there will be no safe place in Russia. Ukrainian weapons can reach any Russian military targets.
And it was Donald Trump who allowed strikes deep into Russian territory from Ukraine. At least that's what U.S. President's Special Envoy Keith Kellogg said in an interview with Fox News. And to coordinate strikes on Russia, the U.S. will provide Ukraine with intelligence data. Trump has already instructed the agencies to prepare for this. Yulia Chekichina, Vadim Verba, Rada TV channel. That's the main summary for now.
An elderly man was killed as a result of a Shahed drone strike on the railway station in Shostka. He was found in a carriage of one of the trains hit by the enemy drone. This was reported by the Sumy Region Prosecutor's Office, which has launched an investigation. Among the injured are a woman and her 3 sons. At the same time, the press officer of the Regional State Emergency Service, Oli Strilka, spoke on the marathon broadcast about the consequences of the attack, particularly about the condition of the victims.
One person died. It was a man. He was 71 years old. He was at the very epicenter of the strike in the train that caught fire. 3 children were also injured. They are 8, 11, and 14 years old. The oldest child, a boy, is in moderate condition. And among the injured, 1 person is in serious condition.
The Russians committed yet another war crime today at noon. They struck with drones. According to the Prosecutor General's office, the Russians first hit the Tereshchinska-Novorod-Siversky suburban train with a drone as it was waiting to depart. A few minutes later, as people were running to the shelter, they struck the Shostka-Kiev train. The strike hit the electric locomotive. As a result of the attack, at least 30 people were injured, according to the State Emergency Service. In the afternoon, Russian forces launched a ballistic missile strike on Shostka. After continuous attacks in recent days, the situation in the district is critical. There is no gas, water, or electricity, the local authorities reported. Shostka was under Russian attacks all day. Strikes targeted the train station, the energy sector, and civilian infrastructure, the president said in his evening address. He called the shelling of the city typical Russian terror and said that energy workers and repair crews are working at the scene. After the Russian strikes, areas in Chernihiv and Donetsk regions are also without electricity. Therefore, local authorities must ensure power supply. Volodymyr Zelensky also once again emphasized that Russia needs to be pressured with sanctions. He expressed hope that the 19th package will finally take effect. And he announced that he had signed several sanction-related decisions.
The first concerns the extension of sanctions, whose term was about to expire. This applies to Russian entrepreneurs and their connections to Putin's regime. The second decree targets the Russian military industry, specifically drone and component manufacturers. The third decree imposes our sanctions against individuals and companies connected to the Russian oil sector.
The shelling of the railway station confirms Russia's reckless and ongoing willingness to strike at the civilian population. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen condemned the hostile attack on Shostka. According to her, the EU and its partners must continue to increase pressure on Russia until it finally agrees to a just and lasting peace. The attack on Shostka is part of a broader pattern of Russian crimes, according to the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs. Margus Tsakna says that strikes on gas facilities, civilian infrastructure and the energy sector are deliberate targets for Russia. He called on the EU to impose tougher sanctions and to hold Russia accountable for its crimes.